You have heard of hygge. Candles, blankets, a warm cup of coffee on a rainy afternoon. That is what the internet sold you. But that is not what Danish parents mean when they say hygge. Not even close. Because here is the part nobody tells you. Danish families spend roughly 3 hours every week doing something most families around the world never do. And when researchers finally tracked what happens inside the brains of children who grow up with this practice, they found something that no amount of screen time, tutoring, or structured activities can replicate. The data was so consistent that one research team called it a biological reset switch for the developing nervous system. 3 hours a week. That is the difference between a child who can calm themselves down after a meltdown and a child who stays dysregulated for hours. So what is this practice? And why has Denmark, a country that has ranked in the top 3 happiest nations on Earth for over 40 years, built its entire parenting culture around it? Let us get one thing straight. Hygge is not a lifestyle trend. It is not a candle brand, and it is definitely not an Instagram aesthetic. When Danish parents talk about hygge, they are talking about something very specific. A shared state of presence. No phones, no multitasking, no one rushing out the door. Just a family, together, fully engaged with each other. It can happen at dinner. It can happen around a board game. It can happen walking in the forest after school. The word itself comes from an Old Norse term meaning to comfort or to console. And that is exactly what it does at a neurological level. Because what researchers have discovered is that hygge is not about being cozy. It is about co-regulation, the biological process by which one nervous system helps another nervous system find its baseline. And in Denmark, this process is not accidental. It is structured, it is intentional, and it is repeated, week after week, year after year. In 2002, a team of researchers at Syracuse University published a landmark review. They analyzed 50 years of research on naturally occurring family routines and rituals. 50 years, 320 studies reviewed. The lead author, Barbara Feesey, found something striking. Families who maintained consistent rituals, shared meals, game nights, evening walks, showed measurably higher levels of parenting competence, better child emotional adjustment, and stronger marital satisfaction compared to families without rituals. But here is where it gets really interesting. The effect was not about the activity itself. It was about the meaning the family attached to it. Families who simply ate dinner together because it was efficient saw weaker effects. Families who ate dinner together and called it their ritual, their hygge time, saw dramatically stronger effects. Meaning amplifies the biology. And then a separate study at the University of Michigan followed 184 families with teenagers. The families who maintained even one repeating ritual, whether a Friday dinner, a weekend walk, or a Sunday movie night, showed 40% fewer symptoms of anxiety and depression in their children. 40% from one ritual. So what is actually happening inside the brain during these moments? In 2012, neuroscientist Ruth Feldman at Bar-Ilan University published a series of groundbreaking studies on oxytocin and human attachment. Her team measured oxytocin levels in parents and infants during face-to-face interaction. They found that oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, does not just flow in one direction. It is co-regulated. When a parent is emotionally present and responsive, both the parents' and the child's oxytocin levels rise together. When emotional connection is broken, both levels drop. This was not subtle. The researchers found that couples who showed higher levels of interactive reciprocity, eye contact, positive affect, affectionate touch, and synchronized emotional states had significantly higher baseline oxytocin levels. Not just during the interaction, at baseline. In other words, the ritual rewires the nervous system permanently. It does not just feel good in the moment, it changes the set point. Then, in 2017, Martha Welch at Columbia University proposed what she called calming cycle theory. Her research showed that oxytocin levels in mothers and infants are actively co-regulated by emotional connection or disconnection. The cycle works like this. Positive emotional presence triggers oxytocin release. Oxytocin reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. Lower cortisol allows the child's prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-regulation, to come back online. Hygge is the cultural infrastructure that makes this cycle happen on repeat. Now let us look at what happens on the flip side, because the cortisol research is equally revealing. A study published in the journal Development and Psychopathology found that child cortisol levels directly moderate the relationship between family routines and emotional regulation. In children with high cortisol, which means chronically stressed kids, the lack of family routines was most strongly associated with poor emotion regulation. The absence of ritual did not just leave them without comfort, it removed the only biological mechanism they had for returning to baseline. And here is the key insight. The cortisol research shows that rituals do not just reduce stress in the moment, they train the child's nervous system to self-regulate over time. Every time a child experiences co-regulation during a family ritual, their brain builds stronger neural pathways for returning to calm on their own. This is why Danish children appear so calm, not because they are inherently different, because their nervous systems have been trained through years of repeated co-regulation rituals to find equilibrium faster. The calm is not personality, it is practice. Now compare this to what most families are doing. The average American family shares fewer than 3 meals together per week. A recent survey found that only 45% of families eat at the same table, and that number has been declining year over year. Meanwhile, in Denmark, shared family meals are considered non-negotiable. The official Danish cultural portal describes family dinners as a time when household members talk about their day while eating a home-cooked meal. Dinners in Denmark regularly last 1 to 2 hours, not because they eat slowly, because the ritual includes conversation, connection, and presence. The difference is not about food, it is about frequency and intention. When Danish families sit down together, they are not checking phones. They are not eating in shifts. They are not rushing to the next activity. They are practicing the very thing that Feldman's and Welke's research identified as the mechanism for nervous system co-regulation. Shared emotional presence, repeated, predictable, meaningful. 3 hours a week. That is the average time Danish families dedicate to structured hygge. Not random togetherness, intentional, phone-free, emotionally present time. So how do you actually build this into your family life, especially if you did not grow up with it? Jessica Joelle Alexander, author of The Danish Way of Parenting, outlined a framework that Danish families use. It is summarized in the acronym PARENT. P for play, A for authenticity, R for reframing, E for empathy, N for no ultimatums, and T for togetherness or hygge. The T is what we are focusing on today, and here is how Danish families structure it. First, they pick a recurring time. It does not have to be daily. Research shows that even one consistent weekly ritual produces measurable effects. Friday dinner, Sunday morning pancakes, Thursday board game night. The key is consistency. Same day, same time, same expectation. Second, they eliminate distractions. Phones go in another room. The television stays off. Research from the University of Michigan study confirmed that the emotional benefit of family rituals is directly proportional to the level of presence. Partial attention does not trigger the same oxytocin response. Third, they let the ritual have meaning. In the FEES review, the single strongest predictor of positive outcomes was not frequency of the ritual, it was the meaning the family attached to it. Families who explicitly named their ritual called it their hygge time, their family hour, their sacred evening, saw significantly stronger effects than families who just happened to do the same activity. The name creates the intention. The intention activates the biology. Fourth, they include the children in the process. Danish children help set the table, choose the game, prepare the food. This is not accidental. Research on co-regulation shows that shared participation amplifies the oxytocin response compared to passive participation. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds nice, but my family is busy. We have sports, homework, work emails, and barely enough time to eat before bedtime. That is exactly the point. The families who need rituals the most are the ones with the least time. Because chronic busyness means chronic cortisol, and chronic cortisol in children is associated with anxiety, attention difficulties, sleep disruption, and emotional dysregulation. So here is the minimum effective dose. 1 ritual, 1 hour per week, no phones, full presence. Give it a name. If you start tonight, research suggests you could see measurable changes in your child's emotional regulation within 4 to 6 weeks. Not because the ritual is magic, because you are activating a biological mechanism that was already built into the human nervous system. You are just giving it the conditions it needs to work. This is not about being Danish. This is about being intentional with the 3 hours that science says matter more than any tutor, any extracurricular, and any enrichment program. Because the research is clear. The strongest predictor of a child's emotional well-being is not how much you do for them, it is how present you are with them. And presence, in the rhythm of family life, is called ritual. If this is the first time you are hearing about the neuroscience behind hygge, there is more where that came from. In our video on why Denmark banned physical punishment 45 years ago, we explored how Nordic discipline practices also build regulation, through connection, not isolation. The link is in the description. The Nordic method is a channel dedicated to decoding the science behind the world's most effective parenting cultures. If you want more research-backed insights like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive. And if you already have a family ritual, tell us about it in the comments. What do you do? When do you do it? What have you noticed in your kids? Your story might be the one that helps another family start their own. I will see you in the next one.